Today we are going to be talking about how to establish and maintain your supply whenever you're pumping, how to drop a pumping session at night and during the day, and what a newborn pumping schedule should look like for you. Hey y'all, Noli here. I am an exclusively pumping mom, and I just want to share my journey and the things that I have learned with you guys so that hopefully I can make it a little bit easier for you and you don't have to go through so much heartache and struggle. And my baby's in the background playing, and I am currently pumping right now, so this is the epitome of what pumping life is like as a mom. In order to establish and maintain your supply, you want to make sure that you only pump as much as your baby needs, and then maybe a little extra if you want to start establishing that freezer stash. So you want to really pay attention to how much your baby is eating and how often, so that you can make sure you've got that milk all ready to go for them, and so you don't create too much of an oversupply. Now, when your milk comes in after a couple days postpartum, you are going to be super engorged for a good week or two, and that is totally okay. Don't freak out about it too much. It will be a lot of work, but you can get through it, and it is normal to be engorged 24/7 right after your milk comes in. Don't worry. It'll settle. It won't feel as horrible after a while. You just have to get through that first week or so. So don't worry whenever your milk comes in. Don't worry about always emptying your breasts. You don't want to empty your breasts because that first week or two is really important. Wait. That first week or two is really important in establishing your supply. So you don't want to be expressing too much, or that's going to create a major oversupply. So really just pay attention to how much your baby is eating and express that much, and you want to pump often, every 2 to 3 hours. You don't want to go longer than that. Because it's going to feel super uncomfortable and you could get clogs, and that's no fun. So you want to pump often, and that will also help to relieve the engorgement for a little bit, so you can have a little bit of relief. But pumping every 2 to 3 hours is super important when establishing your supply. Don't worry about emptying your breasts completely. Just empty what your baby needs. You also want to make sure, as a general rule, that you are pumping for a total of 120 minutes a day, or 2 hours a day. So if you pump every 3 hours, that would be 15 minutes each pump session. And if during that time, that 15 minutes every couple hours, you are not able to get enough milk out for your baby, if they end up eating it all and they're still super hungry and fussy, then something that you will want to look at is if you have the right flange size and if you are using the right kind of pump. Other things that you can do as well are playing with the settings of your pump to see if you can get a faster output. You can also try, taking supplements, having little lactation cookies, or eating oatmeal in the morning, or taking little pills. There's a bunch of things that you can do if you need to increase that supply. You can also do power pumping, which is where you pump for like 5 minutes, and then you stop for 5 minutes, and then you pump for 10 minutes. So just look up how to power pump, and there are plenty of videos that explain how you can do that. And that's one thing you can do to increase your supply if you are not pumping as much as your baby is eating. So here is a good schedule for pumping with a newborn. So you want to pump at least every 3 hours for 15 minutes so that it totals 120 minutes of pumping time in 24 hours. Now, how do you drop a pumping session without affecting your supply? That is the big question. You really want to wait until you feel like you are physically ready to drop a session. Ideally after your baby has already dropped that feeding session. So most likely the first session that you are going to drop will be that 1 a.m. pump session, because whenever your baby starts sleeping longer throughout the night, that is usually the first feeding time that they end up sleeping past. So whenever you end up dropping that session, you want to wait until your baby is sleeping past that time, and they're not feeding around that time. And 2, you want to wait until your body feels physically ready to drop that time without it affecting your supply. So you just kind of have to listen to your body and wait until you feel that you are ready to drop that time. And then whenever you do drop it, you will want to reallocate that 15 minutes or however long into other pump sessions throughout the day, so that you still have a total pump time of 2 hours. So you can, move 5 minutes to your next pump session at 4 a.m. You can move 5 minutes to that pump session at 7 a.m. and another 5 minutes at 10 a.m. However you want to do it, just kind of think about whenever you feel like you need more time to pump, and you can add that time in however you want. The next session that you will probably end up dropping will be the pump session around 4 a.m. once your baby starts sleeping completely through the night until 6, 7 a.m. Oh, really? So that is going to be the crucial pump session that you really want to wait until you're ready to drop. Because if you go from 9, 10 p.m. at night to 6 or 7 a.m. without pumping, that can dramatically affect your supply in a negative way if your body isn't quite ready for that yet. So even if your baby is sleeping all the way through the night, that doesn't necessarily mean that your body will be ready to drop that pump session. Whenever my baby started sleeping through the night, I waited like an entire month before I felt like I was ready to start trying to drop that 4 a.m. pump session. And whenever you drop a pumping session, there's a couple different ways that you can do it. One way that you can try is by gradually pushing that pumping time out, 15, 20 minutes each night, so that, instead of pumping at 4 a.m., you pump at 4:15, and then the next night you pump at 4:30, and then 4:45. You can also do, 4:30 for a couple nights, and then try 4:45 for a couple nights. You can stretch it out however long you need to, but just gradually trying to push that pumping session later and later is one way that you can do it. I tried that one first because I thought that my body would respond better to it, but it actually didn't, and I got a ton of clogs, and it was just a whole big deal. So I ditched that one, and instead I tried still pumping at 4 a.m., but pumping for a shorter amount of time. So at that point, instead of pumping for 30 minutes, I pumped for 20 minutes, and that went totally fine. So the next night, actually the next 2 nights, I pumped for 15 minutes at 4 a.m. And then once I felt like my body was well adjusted to that, I tried pumping for 10 minutes. And I didn't quite make it to 10 minutes. That 4th night, it ended up being about 12 minutes. And oh yeah. Oh yeah. I ended up pumping for 12 minutes that 4th night, and then I did another 2 nights pumping for 12 minutes. And then that 7th night, I was feeling really good, so I decided that was the night that I was going to try and go all night without pumping. So I did, and it went fantastically. One note, though, is that, so I believe I would pump around 10 p.m. right before I went to bed, and then I'd pump at 4 a.m. and then again at like 7:30 a.m. after I had gotten my baby up, fed him, and changed his diaper. So to kind of compensate for dropping that 4 a.m. pump session, I moved my 7:30 pump time up to about 6:30 right before my son got up for the day. So that is something that I did to kind of compensate for dropping that pump session. And then I also added that pump time into my other pumping sessions so that I could keep that 2-hour total pump time for the day. And something that I did too is I eventually worked myself so that I was able to pump at 9 p.m. instead of 10 p.m. so that I could go to bed just a little bit earlier. So that's something that you can try as well, but obviously you want to do it a little bit at a time. You won't want to go from 10 p.m. to 9 p.m. just like that. You'll want to do, 9:50 and then 9:40, 9:30, and slowly work your way there. So those are 2 different ways that you can try dropping a pump session at night. Just pick whichever one. Yeah, just pick whichever one you feel will work best for you, and then try it for a couple nights, see how it goes. It's going to take a transition time, so you're going to need at least like a week of transitioning before you can actually drop that session altogether. So you can't just do it in one night. It's going to take some time either way you choose. Now, whenever you drop a pumping session during the day, you most likely will need to shift around your pumping times. Say you're pumping 6 times a day from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Instead of just dropping a 1 p.m. pump session and going from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. without pumping, you want to shift around all of your 5 remaining pumping times so that they're kind of evenly spread out throughout your day. Say you pump at 7 a.m. and then you pump at 11 a.m. and then you pump at 3 p.m. and then 7 p.m. and then 10 p.m. again, something like that. And obviously too, you want to make sure that whenever you do drop your pumping times, you add however many minutes you need to each pumping time so that you can have a total pumping time of 2 hours. So say you're pumping 6 times a day and you want to pump 5 times a day. That means that instead of pumping for 20 minutes each pump session, you want to pump for 24 minutes each pump session. So you're reallocating that 20 minutes that you're dropping into the rest of your pump time. So you're adding 4 minutes to each pump time, or if you need to, obviously you can add a little bit more to one pump time and a little bit less to another. You can do it however you feel you need to. Every person is different. Everybody's schedule is different. So just pay attention to your body and what your body responds best to. So that is the ideal pumping schedule. Obviously, with this pumping schedule, you can adjust the times however you need to. You know, these are just suggested times. And obviously your baby's going to be eating around the same schedule as well. So for example, you can feed your baby at 7 a.m., pump right after around 7:30, and then, you know, feed your baby at 10 a.m. and then pump right after around 10:30. Or you could pump before you feed your baby, or you could pump, you know, after you put your baby down for a nap. You can do whatever you need to, and you can adjust these times however you need to as well. This is just a good starting point to get you going so that you can have a good, strong supply without it being too much. Because whenever you have too much of an oversupply, it can become really burdensome because you're spending so much time pumping, and then you're getting super engorged and uncomfortable all the time, and it's just a whole big deal. So that's why it's really important to just make sure you are pumping out enough for your baby to eat. You pump out whatever they're going to eat, and then maybe a little bit extra if you want to get a freezer stash going. But I only pump about 38 ounces a day total. So my baby eats about 30 to 32 ounces a day usually. And then I have about 6 ounces to freeze every day. And that has worked really well for me. I've been able to have a great storage supply going in the freezer. But it's not too much to where it's really overbearing and burdensome, because as moms, we are just doing the best that we can, and sometimes we are just barely surviving as it is. So you don't want to put too much pressure on yourself where you don't need to. That's why it's really important in the beginning to keep your boobs regularly stimulated by pumping every 2 to 3 hours, but not pumping too much so that you create an oversupply. So that is it. Be sure to like and subscribe so that you can see more. And if you have any questions or anything that I missed, be sure to leave that down below so that we can get a good conversation going. I look forward to hearing from you guys, and I'll see you on the next one.